Michael never considered himself a Kennedy cousin or even somebody who was within the Kennedy family orbit. The Kennedy and Skakel families had a complex relationship. My mother was the sister of Michael Skakel's father, Rocky Skakel, but Michael Skakel did not have a drop of Kennedy blood. Michael Skakel never, ever used the Kennedy name or identified himself as the Kennedy name or considered himself part of the Kennedy family. The first part of the book talks about how Michael was framed, and it specifically identifies the people who framed him and disclose information that has never before been disclosed about how the framing took place. It was initiated originally by Mark Furman, the LA police detective, and then Dominic Dunn, the Vanity Fair gossip, Len Levitt, a local crime reporter in Connecticut, and Detective Frank Garr, a corrupt Greenwich police detective who suborned perjury and concealed evidence in order to get Michael convicted. And finally, a member of the group that has never been disclosed or suspected before, a man named Tom Sheridan, who was a close confidant of Rush Skakel's. He was a Skakel family lawyer for some 40 years. He made a fortune advising the Skakels and milked them for their money. I was shocked, as was all of Michael's family, by the conviction of Michael Skakel, and I decided to investigate myself. I published an article in the Atlantic Monthly in 2003 showing that Michael could not and did not commit the crime, that other suspects were much stronger, that Michael himself was 11 miles away with 5 eyewitnesses when the crime was committed. Following the publication of that article, I received a letter from a man named Crawford Mills, who I had never met before, but who had been a classmate of Michael Skakel's. Crawford opened his letter by saying the jury got it wrong. He introduced me to the name Tony Bryant. Tony befriended 2 men who would later murder Martha Moxley. One of them was named Adolf, and the other was called Burr. They were inseparable. Both of them were large men. They were a year older than their classmates. They were 6'3" and 6'4", respectively, and both weighed around 250 pounds and were very solid, powerful athletes who had the kind of physical size and power that would be needed to commit the kind of savage and barbaric crime that killed Martha Moxley. Adolf became obsessed with Martha Moxley, and on New Year's Eve in 1975, he rode the train with Burton and Tony Bryant to Greenwich, Connecticut to take part in Mischief Night. On the train on the way up, Adolf and Burr plotted to assault sexually a Greenwich girl and take her caveman style. They pledged that they would not leave until they had accomplished this. Tony Bryant got nervous at this time, threw his golf club away, and went to the train station and took a train back to New York City because he knew there was going to be trouble in Greenwich. 20 minutes later, his 2 companions murdered Martha Moxley. When I talked to Tony, almost 3 decades later, I reached him on the phone after my conversations with Crawford Mills, and I introduced myself. I said, this is Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I'm a cousin of Michael Skakel's. I want to talk to you about the Martha Moxley murder. There was dead silence on the line for about 5 seconds, and then he said, I've been waiting for 27 years for this phone call.